My fellow Americans, I'm pleased to tell you today that I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes.
It is essential that our team learns to work with our new recruit, not against him.
I'm a geek, walking down the street.
Check the computer.
The mainframe computer. I access the mainframe.
At the end of this day, one shall stand, one shall fall. Time to find out.
Welcome to Basically a Geek Show. Here are your hosts, Mike and Jack.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 7 of Basically a Geek Show. Jack, why don't you start us off this week?
We have fallen into dark times, ladies and gentlemen. An unholy blight of kid appeal cuteness has reared its ugly, hideous face.
As prophesized in the Bible.
In a form that, though deep down, Mike and I both knew we knew this would happen. We knew this would happen one day. But we thought, no, we're just being paranoid, as him and I are prone to being. And then this evening, on the TFW 2005 forum, our worst fears became manifest in reality. The plot line for the new Transformers cartoon has in fact been revealed, or at least the basic synopsis thereof. It has been previously only alluded to and described as something that would be somewhere between Transformers Prime and Rescue Bots. Kind of like taking a bit of a nod to the complexity, maybe plot-wise, of G1 or something like that was kind of what they alluded to. And, you know, him and I were kind of apprehensive, but cautiously optimistic. Until tonight. This is, as we record this, 11 p.m. on March 17th on a Monday. Not our normal recording night, but frankly, this kind of thing, we had to get on and do this while this was fresh in our minds. Basically, for me to go ahead and get to the fucking point. Bumblebee is replacing Optimus Prime in the new Transformers series. I'm going to be quiet for a moment. I'm going to let that sink in. Now, if you're not mad yet, then you have no brain or no soul. Close the window right now and never listen to our show again.
You know,
Mike, go on.
You know, and I thought Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit was bad.
You ain't seen nothing yet, brother.
At least that movie kept Jack Ryan as the main character.
Did it? Did it really, or was it fucking James Bond? God damn you, Kevin Costner. But yeah, no.
One righteous rant of indignation at a time, sir. No. Okay. So, to expand on what Jack has unveiled to you, this series will be a sequel to Transformers Prime. And at the end of Transformers Prime Beast Hunters, the movie Predacons Rising, which served as an ending to that series, Optimus Prime sacrificed himself to stop Unicron. And that's a noble death, and, you know, if that's how the Prime story was going to end with Optimus sacrificing himself, alright, fine. I don't have a problem. I don't think anyone has a problem with that. But because this is going to be a sequel, Optimus, well, he dead. And, you know, there are no Quintessons or Forges of Solus Prime left to bring him back. Or whatever the hell brought him back in Armada. As much as I love that series, I actually can't remember what brought him back to life. So Optimus is dead. Bumblebee is the new leader. And this was inevitable, really, if you look back at every Transformers line since the first movie. We all saw the deluge of Bumblebees.
Christ.
I once joked that they were going to announce that every Bumblebee from the past 2 years would be revealed to be combined, and they'd unleash Omegas Bumblebees or something.
The series finale of this new show has just been called by Mike.
All the Bumblebees from all the universes will walk through the portal and carry baby Bumblebee through the portal.
Behold, now is the winter of your discontent. Abandon hope, all ye who enter here.
So what we've got is a situation. So looking back, Jack, we should have seen this coming, and I think we
did see it coming. We just denied it. We stuck our fucking heads in the sand, and we were in denial because we want to believe that level of butt fuckery is not going to happen to our Transformers.
I remember what. Okay. So, when Dark of the Moon came out, the third Transformers movie, when that toy line was revealed, it was announced that the 3 leader class toys, like the big money toys of the electronics and the complex transformations, the 3 leader class toys were going to be Sentinel Prime, Bumblebee, and Ironhide. And Jack suggested, wait, Optimus Prime is usually one of the leader toys. He's not this movie. What if Bumblebee will become the Autobot leader? And then we quickly dismissed that. No, they're never going to make Bumblebee the leader. No, they're not that stupid. It should have been obvious to all of us in retrospect, ladies and gentlemen.
I expected it in Predacons Rising. I went into that movie with a great sense of fear and trepidation.
Well, it essentially has happened. Even if it didn't happen in the movie, I mean,
right.
This is the sequel. Yeah. So it did happen.
Right, yeah, basically, yes. They gave us a pass for however many months since, what was it, November of last year when they made the movie. And then now, yeah, they gave us a pass. They gave us that bit of false hope. And I was waiting for it, that entire fucking movie. I was fucking waiting for it. And, then there's that big speech. Today, all of you have shown the courage of a Prime.
Which pissed me the fuck off.
Yeah. Really? You're all winners? You all get it? You all get it? We're Optimus Prime's handing out fucking participation. Drink another beer, Jack. Handing out because you tried trophies, since I can't say the other word very well at the moment.
Participation.
Yeah, fucking totally that. And to any of our listeners, yes, Mike and I are quite heavily inebriated at the moment, because we heard this. And we decided, you know what? We're doing this now.
I mean, I don't know if, this has been fully comprehended. Maybe our rambling has muddled the issue here. But think about it. Optimus Prime has been replaced by Bumblebee. It finally happened. Anyone paying attention to the Transformers collectors scene, the Transformers online fandom, we've all seen the signs, ladies and gentlemen. We all knew it was coming. Maybe we didn't predict it, but deep down I think we knew, and now it's happened. And let's cut off some debate from the nimwits right off the bat, Jack. There are going to be people who say, finally, a show with a leader who's not Optimus, as if that's a fucking good thing.
Well, okay, here's the thing. I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to that. I know what a lot of these little sycophants are going to say. G1er, No, it's not that with me. I mean, that might be with you, and if it is, fine, whatever, I don't care. It's not that with me. I wouldn't have cared if it was someone other than, well, I would have cared, but I mean, I would get it if they were keeping it in that continuity if it was someone other than Optimus. Okay? But Bumblebee, he's been crammed down our throats as if we're kneeling down in a truck stop glory hole since 2007, when the first movie came out. Was it 2007, Mike? The first
2007.
movie?
2007.
Yeah, 2007. Bumblebee has been rammed down our throats.
You know the funny thing about that movie? And I think I've mentioned it before, but it bears repeating, given the current circumstances. When the first movie was released, the very first wave of toys had Bumblebee in the 76 Camaro mode.
Yeah.
But everyone wanted the toy of Bumblebee in the updated 2009 Camaro mode.
Which I don't understand why. That thing looks like ass.
But that was the one that people wanted. Well, that toy started to hit shelves, and when people started seeing it on shelves, everyone wanted it. I was part of this. I saw a single one on the shelf, and I bought it right then and there because I wanted that toy, and that toy was hard to get for a couple months. For a couple months in 2007, the fandom wanted more Bumblebee.
And we got it.
7 years later, he has replaced Optimus Prime. And look, okay, first of all, I'm going to ignore the fact that Transformers fans are the only fandom that I know of where a faction exists that would like new iterations of the series to not actually feature beloved characters. I mean, you never, ever see a Batman reboot where Batman fans are complaining, oh, Bruce Wayne is in it, lame. But yet there seems to be a strain of fan that wants a Transformers series where Optimus Prime and Megatron aren't the leaders. And you know what? Fine. Maybe that can work under certain circumstances, but God damn it. Bumblebee.
You know what? I'm going to say something I've never fucking said before. Brace yourself, Mike. And yes, I know some things can't be taken back.
Okay.
I want Hot Rod back.
You know? At least he was a fucking Prime. At least he was chosen by the Matrix. But they didn't even give us that courtesy in this, in this continuity. They didn't even have Optimus give Bumblebee the Matrix at the end of Predacons Rising. I mean, maybe I wouldn't have liked it, but at least it would have made him a Prime. But instead they pulled that, and in the continuity of Transformers, the Matrix is an artifact that has been around for billions and billions of years. It is said to be like the life force of Primus himself. Primus's wisdom contained, and it always chose the Prime to lead Cybertron. And, obviously Optimus gets the most press, but if you actually look at the comics, look at the history of it, there have been some very interesting Primes, some very interesting characters, and to know that legacy in Transformers Prime at the end of that series was kind of just pissed away, had they just given it to Bumblebee and said, Bumblebeemus Prime, you are the new Prime.
Bumblebeemus Prime.
Yeah, exactly. If they'd done that, I find that makes sense, I guess. That makes sense. But, he's not even a Prime. He's just goddamn Bumblebee.
Bumblebee, in this leadership capacity, is an illegitimate leader. Where's Vladimir Putin when you need him?
I mean, God, okay, granted, in Armada, they made Hot Rod the leader for, a minute. I mean, not Hot Rod, but Hot Shot. They made Hot Shot the leader for a minute.
And Megatron, got depressed.
This is happening in real life. We are Megatron, Jack.
Be the hero long enough, and you see yourself become the villain.
Hasbro eventually just replaced Optimus Prime with Bumblebee.
But Mike, they're the champions of family fun.
Yeah, another thing. Can we talk about this press release? So, let
me read this. Let me read this. Okay. Los Angeles, the Hub Network, champions of family fun, and the only network dedicated to providing kids and their families entertainment they can watch together, announced today that a new animated series is currently in production for the globally renowned Transformers brand. Set to debut in early 2015, the new action-packed series is being produced by Hasbro Studios. The production and distribution division of Hasbro Incorporated, and is executive produced by Jeff Klein, TF Prime, G.I. Joe Renegades. Okay, taking place years after the battle between Autobots and Decepticons in TF Prime, this all-new series centers around our hero, Bumblebee, stepping up to lead a brand new team of Autobots. The show features an all-star cast of blah, 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 blah. There you have it. Champions of family, fun.
Champions of family fun.
Champions of family fun. Now,
My Little Pony, sure, I guess so.
What corporate jerk-off comes up with this verbiage? And it's not just Hasbro that's guilty of this. They're just the most recent offenders, so they're the ones catching my ire at the moment. But really, what brain-dead miscreant utters the words champions of family fun without everyone in the room with him beating the living fuck out of him just in principle?
Now, I gotta ask, and I fully admit my ignorance on this, and, if this were a proper show, maybe I would have looked these numbers up beforehand, but, it's 11:13 p.m. On a Monday, and I'm shit-faced.
That explains the smell.
So, I'm not going to look these up. I'm sure someone can inform me. Where does the hub stand in relation to the viewership of American children's entertainment channels such as, say, Nickelodeon or Cartoon Network?
I would imagine they're probably far behind Cartoon Network. Mm-hmm. I think Hub, since they kind of stick to showing their own intellectual properties, quote unquote. I don't see anything intellectual about this, but I would imagine they're probably a good bit behind, though. I don't know numbers any more than you do.
So if we assume...
Cartoon Network's just been around for so long, though. Years. So I'd imagine they have a pretty good lead.
But so who the hell in their right mind says that the hub is the champion of family fun? That they are the only network dedicated to providing kids and their families entertainment they can watch together. Really, the hubris of it all. Look, Hasbro, I'm a big Transformers fan, and despite your best efforts, I will continue to remain a Transformers fan. So I like you, Hasbro. I like you. And I generally want the hub to be successful, because the hub is successful, then Transformers will be successful. And Transformers is successful, then we all win. So my question here is, all that in mind, who the fuck do you think you are? The hub is the champion of family fun? God damn it. Who said that with a straight face? Ted Turner owns goddamn Cartoon Network. I don't know who the hell owns Hasbro at the moment, but they're sure as hell ain't Ted Turner.
Satan! Satan! Only Satan would come up with the phrase champion of family fun. I'm convinced. Ladies and gentlemen, there have to be dark, demonic powers behind this usurpation of all that is good and decent in the world.
I want to find out who this CEO of Hasbro is. I'm going to find out where he lives, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to buy an Ultimate Bumblebee, one of those hideous giant toys from Revenge of the Fallen, I think it was. You know, one of those really, really big Bumblebee toys loaded with electronic features that no one bought because they just sat on shelves. And I'm gonna buy that. And I am going to saw it in half. And I'm going to sneak into the CEO of Hasbro's house. And I'm going to leave the severed torso of Ultimate Bumblebee in his bed as he sleeps.
I'll just sign him up for Bedwetters Anonymous or something. And have it delivered to his job. I don't even think that still exists.
Optimus Prime has been replaced. He has been replaced.
Okay, alright. Now, okay, all of our indignation aside, Mike, let's be realistic. Okay, we knew someone, if they did a continuity carry on from TF Prime, we knew there were, unless they did another G1 and bring Optimus back magically, you know, there would be a different Prime or a different leader. Mm-hmm. Would be a Prime, be a leader. Mm-hmm. We knew that. There would have to be. But, you know, I get it. I really do. I get that they had to do it from that perspective. Did it have to be Bumblebee?
I think I would have been okay with it if it was Smokescreen. I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think of who else it could have been. Ultra Magnus would have been my objective choice, but honestly, that's probably not going to happen because Robert Stack is expensive. Oh, not Robert Stack. Michael Ironside is expensive. So, you know, that they're not going to get him for a full series. So with that in mind, yeah. I would have gone with Smokescreen because, you know, in a certain episode he was almost made Prime, and from an in-universe perspective, it's got to suck for him to know he was almost Prime, and now he's taking orders from Bumblebee.
Taking orders from Captain Kid Appeal.
So, yeah.
And now it makes sense that they actually had Bumblebee put the kibosh on Megatron.
I guess it does.
And that irritated the shit out of me when it happened too. And
that's another thing where we should have seen this coming, but we didn't.
Right, and that's, well, when I was watching, I kept waiting for it, and it didn't happen. And they did it to, try to build up Bumblebee's badass credentials, and I apologize. I apologize for using those words in the same sentence together. They did it for that purpose and to set up this abomination. Mm-hmm. You know, this almost, I don't know, does this make TF Animated look good?
TF Animated did its own stuff.
Have we gotten to that level where TF Animated it would be better than this?
I mean, they had Optimus Prime, but it was kind of an in-name only dealio. They do their own thing. I'm not sure how this is going to stack up to that. Sadly, I have to say, I hate to say this, but I'm going to have to see this series before I can judge it in relation to animated, but it could be ready to knock animated off of its inglorious perch.
And I know a lot of people are like, you don't even know what it's going to be, and you're jumping all these conclusions.
Bumblebee's replacing Optimus Prime. I know what it's going to be.
Yeah, there are a fair number of conclusions one can jump to from even the most seemingly insignificant details, such as, plot, basis, cornerstone.
Bumblebee he'll probably have confidence issues at first. I guarantee you that's going to be a plot thread. Hopefully, from a storyline perspective, they don't do that thing where, that they did in season 3 of G1, where Optimus spent the entire series bitching that he wasn't as good as Optimus. So from a purely storyline perspective, hopefully they have Bumblebee step the fuck up after he's done his required whining. But I know what it's going to be in the sense that he's going to have to rise to the challenge of being a leader. He'll be living in Optimus Prime shadow. I call it. You could take that to the bank. That's going to be a plot thread.
And the thing is, people are eating this shit up. People are eating this shit up.
Oh, I knew that the simpletons who go on and on about, Transformers needs to have a series where Optimus and Megatron aren't leaders, as if that was a good thing. But, I have to tell you, here's a secret. It's not.
People are eating this shit up. Oh, really? Finally a hero who's not Optimus Prime. Seriously? Seriously. My God, man. Okay, and again, this isn't... Yes, Mike and I are both Optimus Prime fanboys. I'm not going to deny that. I wear that badge proudly. This isn't even about that. This is, you're taking the most stereotypical, lame, cheesy kid appeal, I'm small but I can have big adventures character, and you're putting him as the leader of the Autobots. That's what this is about when it comes right down to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sure, you can, run around, you can do your little scouty, snipey shit, whatever the fuck, and you can squeak around because your fucking voice synthesizer's fried, and oh yeah, it's so cute, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't make one a capable leader. And yeah, I know that you're going to point out, all you people out there, all of the building up they did in TF Prime to give this some air of legitimacy. Thank fuck for IDW.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I gotta say. Thank fuck for IDW.
You know what? I hope that at some point in this show, Nova Prime shows up. It's like, what the fuck? And he just squashes this little twerp.
Now, I think we all know that's probably not going to happen because Nova Prime's an interesting character.
I just want Nova Prime to show up and be like, what the hell happened while I was gone?
I will see past a little bit of the hate and the rage here to kind of maybe break down the wording a bit. And they say that Bumblebee is the leader of a new band of Autobots. So there might be somebody above him who's simply not focused on. It could be maybe that Ultra Magnus is, like the head honcho. And Bumblebee is in charge of almost like a TF animated kind of a deal where, him and his little band of idiots, I'm sure Wheelie's probably one of them.
Probably.
And
Blur.
Go wherever, to do what the fuck ever. And, I mean, that could be the case. It could be he's not the leader of the Autobots.
I hope
he's the leader of these Autobots.
I hope it's an Invader Zim type scenario. Where, you have Ultra Magnus, who's, taken over after the death of Optimus Prime, and he's just like, oh, fuck, Bumblebee, okay.
I would rewrite Wheelie as the part of Gurr.
And it's
why is there bacon? Wheelie, why is there bacon in the soap? Because I made it myself.
And you just have, Ultra Magnus being like, oh, fuck, Bumblebee, okay. So you and your band of valuable members of the team can go, here, and then they send them to, some backwater planet so, they don't have to deal with them? I mean, I'd watch that.
Death by Snoo Snoo.
God. Yeah, I'd watch it if, it's just like Ultra Magnus sending Bumblebee and the rest of the Robot Loser Brigade off somewhere. So there you go, Hasbro. That's how you salvage this. Get on it.
The thing is, they're not going to salvage it because they don't feel like there's anything to salvage because, I'm looking over some of the initial reactions to this, and there are very few people that seem to have any semblance of sanity about this whatsoever.
Well, like I said, Transformers is the only fandom that I am aware of where you have a segment of the fan base that seems to not want to see the franchise's characters in the next iteration of the franchise. You always get people saying, like, oh, well, why can't we have a series without Bumblebee, without Optimus and Megatron? Last I checked, every incarnation of Batman features Batman, folks. Every new Bond movie has James Bond in it.
Well, I mean, there to be fair, there is a slight difference in the sense that, the show is called Transformers and not The Adventures of Optimus Prime.
I understand that, but Optimus Prime's been there since, even in Beast Wars, they had an Optimus Prime stand-in. I mean...
Yeah, Optimus Monkey Fuck or whatever the hell he was.
Optimus Primal, yes.
Yeah, whatever.
But at least they went through the effort. They said, no. We need someone who, invokes Optimus Prime.
They at least gave us a reach around with our butt fuck.
Yes.
And now we're not even getting the handy.
It's just, no. Optimus Prime, and I say this with a straight face, and anyone who disagrees with me, write in hate mail, basically at geekshow@gmail.com.
We'll probably get it. We'll probably get a lot of it.
I will respond to it on air. Optimus Prime is as much a part of the Transformers franchise as Batman is the Batman franchise, or as Superman is Superman franchise, as anything else you want to point out, any franchise's main character. Optimus Prime is the main character. Now, granted, I realize that over the past couple of years, Bumblebee has sort of usurped that position from a merchandising perspective, but maybe I was willfully ignorant and I didn't want to believe that it would actually impact the fiction, but it has.
Yeah, no, you and I, sir, we had our heads in the sand. Unfortunately, that just made our asses all the more available to Hasbro. And tonight, we're feeling it going in sans lube, basically. Now, okay, I get that there are interesting characters in the Transformers universe beyond Optimus Prime. And I will be the first to say that the TF Prime iteration of Optimus was not interesting. I will be the first to say that. And I'm not against seeing a different leader, but not fucking Bumblebee. You know what? Take someone that we've never heard of. If we want to go the new route, if we want to give a fresh coat of paint to this old car, let's go all out. Let's not take half measures, shall we? Let's make all new Autobots, or at least pull out someone who's kind of obscure from like the IDW continuity or something. Let's do that. No, Mike, not Chrome Dome and Rewind. Well, maybe, but someone we're not quite as familiar with, give them an interesting backstory, give them something we can latch onto and do it that way. These people who are like, oh yay, finally not Optimus Prime in charge. Okay, yeah, you're taking a character who's just as old as Optimus Prime and putting him in charge. It's still, are you wanting change for the sake of it being interesting, or are you just wanting it for its own sake? Because I don't see anything interesting about Bumblebee.
I think it's these people just want change for change's sake, and it's infuriating. It's absolutely infuriating. You know, Optimus Prime's been replaced by Bumblebee. They finally goddamn did it. It finally happened.
Yep, it did. Fuck us.
I have to say, Jack, and I think that last half hour of content is a good example of it, that some people have been commenting on the colorful use of language in the show, and I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
What fucking colorful language? I don't understand what you're talking about. No, yeah, I get it. You know, the thing is, if you want... we have to throw something in there, right? Okay? Mm-hmm. That's how I am. That's how I am basically in real life. I'm not going to put on pretenses. I'm not going to put on airs on the show. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we are a different kind of show. Mm-hmm. We do cover content that other podcasts cover. We do, you know, there is some crossover there, but we cover more than just one thing as well. And, you know, let's face it, our show has to be about something other than, you know, fucking pre-orders, and, you know, has to have a little bit more personality than a fucking PBS pledge drive.
Very true, very true. I don't think anyone wants to listen to us drone on and on about toy engineering.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we both have some experience in the toy collecting circle of the Transformers fandom. Yeah. The whole scrutiny of every single detail that goes into the making of a Transformers toy is something that I don't think either you or I have much interest in, and we're just trying to do our own thing, I guess. And I can attest to the fact that the Jack you get on the show is very much the Jack you get in real life. So,
for better or for worse, yes.
For better or for worse.
You know, Mike and I, when we started doing this show, you know, I know if it's one thing to get really OCD and really in-depth into, it's a lot of the geek topics, and we do some of that here on the show. But we try to approach it from an everyman standpoint. People people who aren't quite obsessed with their particular, you know, favorite franchise or favorite collections or whatever. Mm-hmm. You know, we're kind of, I guess you could say, we're the geek show for the working stiff, basically.
Thank you.
You know, I work customer service. Mike's a teacher. We don't have a lot of money to throw around to fucking throw down, you know, $200 on a goddamn pre-order on fucking BBTS. And we don't want to, because even if we could, you know what? A lot of times it's the same shit. You can get it at a store. Now, stores, they're these things, and you can drive to them, and they're made out of bricks, and you walk in, and there's, like, people. Now, granted, the people usually smell funny. I'll give you that. I will give you that. But, yeah, why waste your time? Yeah, you know, we are what we are. If you don't like it, you know, to each their own.
To each their own, indeed, indeed. But kind of trailing back to the topic that we opened the show with, there's some more Transformers news, more BotCon 2014 news, actually. No new toy unveilings yet, so we still haven't seen that Autobot Paladin we're waiting for. But some guest announcements have been made for BotCon 2014. Now,
yeah, such as they are.
Such as they are. Now, before I go into that specifically, I just want to say, a lot of the good guests for that could potentially go to BotCon have kind of been stolen. Comic-Con in Texas, a Texas-based Comic-Con convention, has actually signed Peter Cullen for the same weekend that BotCon is gonna be happening.
Oh shit, really? I was just about to say, now this, you know, when you were saying that, I was about to say, well, you know, the appearance of Peter Cullen at BotCon is almost ubiquitous at this point.
It is, and it's even more interesting the fact that this year's BotCon is going to be in Pasadena, California, which is close to where he lives. Yeah, for the BotCon celebrating Transformers 30th anniversary, Peter Cullen will be in Texas at, independently run comic book convention that will have a heavy emphasis on Transformers. So, I guess BotCon, losing out on Peter Cullen, which has to be embarrassing, I would think, if you're the official Transformers fan convention and you can't even land Peter Cullen.
I want to know what the bastards at Hasbro have done to offend the lovely Mr. Cullen.
I don't even think it's Hasbro, because
or whoever's putting on this fucking shit-sickle of a show they're talking about.
Well, the BotCons are run by a company called Fun Publications, FunPub. They are not without controversy. There was that credit card controversy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, the whole swindle thing, I remember that. That was funny.
It definitely, obviously not if, your credit card was affected, but God.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying that the satire they did of that, swindle for Hall of Fame is what it was.
Yes,
I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah, and also this corporate incompetence coming from them was amusing. I mean, just the sheer level of their inability to deal with a crisis. But so it doesn't really surprise me that FunPub would offend a staple of the Transformers franchise like Peter Cullen. But long story short, Peter Cullen, a couple other high-profile Transformers voice actors won't be at BotCon either. They're going to be in Texas. So BotCon, I guess a good way to put it is scraping the bottom of the barrel here.
So what are we getting? What are we getting for those of us who go to the trouble to go to this BotCon? What can we look forward to?
We can look forward to Derek J. Wyatt and Marty Eisenberg. Derek J. Wyatt was the artistic director, one of the creative directors on Transformers Animated, and Marty Eisenberg was the lead writer of both Transformers Beast Machines and Transformers Animated.
So what, are they going to have panels on how to write shit fiction and draw chins?
One would presume. I'm sure anyone who is familiar with Transformers Animated, or even Transformers in general, could probably parse from our previous shows that neither Jack and I are particularly fans of Transformers Animated. To put it bluntly, we both think it's a steaming pile of crap as a show. And Marty Eisenberg, one of the lead writers, not only on Animated, but also on Beast Machines. Transformers Beast Machines, the iteration that almost killed the franchise. Let me restate that. Marty Eisenberg's work on Beast Machines almost killed the franchise, because I remember those days. Not only were those toys not selling, but plans for a Beast Machines follow-up had to be scrapped, and the only way to save this franchise was to import car robots as Transformers Robot in Disguise to give Hasbro enough time to create Armada. And like Armada or not, Armada righted the ship that Beast Machines and Marty Eisenberg had steered drastically off course. So, of course, they make Marty Eisenberg the lead writer on Transformers Animated, because why the hell not?
Fuck it, why not?
Yeah. So Animated, neither you or I are a fan of this, Jack, and we figured that this news would perhaps give us an opportunity to vent some frustrations and let the people out there know why exactly we dislike Animated. I've got my own opinions on the matter. I know you do. I'm going to let you go. What about Transformers Animated really rubbed you the wrong way as a fan?
Well, the thing is, and I've seen arguments to the contrary, and I don't believe any of them, and I'll get to that here in a moment. But the first thing that really turned me off, frankly, was the art style.
Mm-hmm. It's
just atrocious. It looked like Teen Titans, which I'm guessing is drawn by the same guy.
Same creative studio, in fact, was behind it.
Same creative studio? Okay. And Teen Titans was another show that I did not like, also for the art style, and actually for a lot of other reasons on that one. But with regards to Transformers Animated, they just didn't look like Transformers to me. Mm-hmm. I mean, they just didn't.
Now, to those who are going to say, you should have given the show a chance beyond the art style, two things. Both Jack and I did, and two, you can't discount art style. Animation.
It's a cartoon.
It's a cartoon.
Cartoon.
Animation is a very visual medium, and if you don't like what's visually in front of you, don't like the aesthetics of what's visually in front of you, it's going to be harder for you to get invested in it, even if other things are done well. So this whole, get over the art style thing? No. If I don't like the way it looks, then that's going to be a huge stumbling block. And because aesthetics are subjective, no one really has the right to tell me, no one has the right to tell Jack, no one has the right to tell anyone else for that matter, that, we should like the animated style. We didn't. I will say that the Teen Titans style, it works better on humans than it does on robots.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
But yeah, that style for robots, it just did not do it for me at all. And I know that a lot of people like to celebrate the fact that in terms of visuals, the toys were very close to their animation models.
And they were.
And I can appreciate something from an engineering standpoint. And
I thought we said we weren't going to do this, Mike.
Well, I'm talking in broad terms. I'm not going to get into elbow joints or anything. But I can appreciate the fact that, hey, yeah, they made those toys look close to the animation model. I can do that without saying I like the animation style. Anything else besides the animation style, Jack?
Oh, God. Wow. Animation style is like, well, maybe you could count this in. With animation style, possibly. I didn't like the character designs, which I kind of count separate. I mean, there's the design and then there's how you draw it. But getting down more to the meat and the substance of it, what a lot of people called character development, I just called lazy writing. Or just stupid writing. I mean, okay, for example, Optimus Prime, evidently being afraid of spiders. Now, in the series, this is explained by, Elita 1, getting trapped on this planet, being bitten by, getting the Peter Parker treatment, and becoming like Spider-Borg bot. Kind of a deal. And now Prime's, oh my God, spiders! I've seen people, cite this as an example of how character development should be done. Okay. I get it. You want a fallible hero. Some people don't like the one-dimensional hero type. And I understand that. I get where you're coming from with it. The thing is, sometimes it works. Sometimes, in this day and age, I actually think that the one-dimensional hero type is what we don't have much of anymore.
No, it's a breath of fresh air now that everyone's trying to make a flawed hero.
Right, exactly. And, 20 years ago, I might have seen it differently. Maybe. But, when the one-dimensional heroes were more of the thing. But now you've got, that is the norm, the flawed hero archetype. And I would just love to see a go back to just, G1 Prime. And, this isn't me sucking G1's dick or anything like that. This is me saying I liked the way that character was done. I like that archetype.
And before anyone cuts in to complain about it, we need to mention that we're not talking about Transformers Prime. Transformers Prime is not what we're talking about. Transformers G1 Prime had a bit of an edge that Transformers Prime neutered. Yeah.
I have issues with Prime Squared as well. Prime. He was almost in the opposite direction. He was one dimensional in all the wrong ways. He was too ironically robotic. He was too serious. And when his attempts at levity left something to be desired. About the only one I remember was when he said to Ultra Magnus in season 3, with regards to something Agent Fowler was saying, he said, "I just smile and nod," or something like that. And that was kind of funny, but a bit little and a bit late in that regard. The writing for Prime and animated showed him as, just kind of a little too self-doubting, a little too introverted, to the point where he didn't become, to me, a believable leader. I understand where people would say that into the role. this shows kind of the rise Prime origins kind of deal. And, that's not lost on me. I understand what they were trying to do with it, and maybe it's an issue of execution. I see where that could be an interesting storyline. I could see, we're seeing Optimus Prime make a mistake or being somewhat fallible. Could be, interesting. You see that kind of like how they had in G1 with, the Orion Pack storyline, which I would have liked to have actually seen a little bit more of, to tell you the truth. Those early days of Prime. But this was done in a way that I didn't like. I thought it was done rather poorly, and he came across more like a whiny teenager than an aspiring leader. There wasn't that, and he was always just taking shit from other members of the team, specifically Bumblebee. And, he's like, oh, that Bumblebee, ha 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 ha. And no. Well,
Bumblebee got his revenge on that one.
Yeah. God damn it, Mike. Yeah, he did. But that was, my main thing with it. I just didn't like the way that they approached it. I didn't like the way that they approached the storylines. I didn't find them to be very compelling.
Now, in terms of character development, we've touched on this previously, but both you and I are fans of Armada. And in Armada, I would claim that Armada, as much as it gets undeservedly crapped on by some segments of the fandom, that the end of Armada showed a pretty decent amount of characterization and character growth for Optimus Prime, and still retained that sort of classic hero character. Essentially, Unicron convinced Optimus Prime to admit that he liked war and destruction as much as Megatron did.
Galvatron. Oh, yeah, no, you're right. Unicron did, yeah. And to me, that's doing the character development right. It's doing it in a logical way. Because you're taking into, context here that these machines are millions of years old. They've been fighting for almost as long. And, that's going to fuck you up just a little bit. And for Prime to make that admission, that he did kind of enjoy it to some degree, or at the very least, maybe he doesn't enjoy it. He just, unless it were happening, he really wouldn't have a purpose. And maybe that was something he feared, feeling as though he no longer had that purpose and was no longer needed. And then, also what they did with Starscream, where he was neither good nor bad. A lot of people say, well, that's always been Starscream. No, not really. Not the Armada. Yeah, I'm sorry, Armada, please forgive me. But not the way it was done in Armada, because in Armada you actually seen that there was actual good in Starscream. He wasn't a pathetic opportunist. He was a warrior who had his own code. And he would go according to, he believed that there was a right way and a wrong way to pursue a goal. And that pursuing that goal should not involve any more than what's necessary to achieve it. And that was his problem with Megatron. But at the same time, he felt a deep loyalty to Megatron because he swore an oath, warrior, code bound to it, so on and so forth. And that gave him a conflict as well. And thought that this really, to me, that actually, the thing they did with Prime was good, but the character growth and development that they did with Starscream in that particular instance was the best for me personally.
I'd say even added something with Megatron. When Optimus Prime dies midway through Armada, spoilers, he gets better. They kind of show Megatron, who, instead of being ecstatic, he kind of went through a crisis, kind of like Prime did at the end, where he's like, well, if the war's over, do I even have a purpose anymore? If my enemy is gone, then what am I supposed to do? And,
right.
So I think that being against animated doesn't mean you're against character development. It just means you're against the characters that animated crafted. I think animated's, another thing about animated, I'm going to focus on Derek J. Wyatt here for a moment. He didn't just design the art style. He also was a big factor in the creative process of the show. Obviously, Marty Eisenberg, the lead writer, was helming that process, but Wyatt very much did help shape the animated universe and his vision. He he seems very beholden to certain He seemed very beholden to certain ideas, and I think that he comes across, from what I've seen of him on other podcasts and interviews I've seen, Derek J. Wyatt comes across as someone who has a very specific idea of what he wants Transformers to be, and, well, you can go screw yourself, in his mind, if you're not that. That's another thing that kind of soured me to this whole animated thing. I was never a fan of the show, but I try not to like my dislike of someone's work color my opinion of them. But kind of just hearing Derek J. Wyatt go on and on about how he doesn't accept the IDW story where it shows Ratbat's background as a powerful member of the Cybertronian Senate because it doesn't have him as a tape, as a cassette tape. And according to Derek J. Wyatt, he ought to be a cassette tape, even though Derek J. Wyatt turned him into an electric guitar, but that's besides the point. My larger point is that he has this certain vision of how Transformers is supposed to be. And for someone like me, who's not really a fan of the show, I'm not going to be made any more of a fan when I hear one of the main creative forces behind the show go on and sort of say, oh, well, I don't consider that or the other thing to be, that's not real Transformers. It's kind of, and he kind of comes down on fans who kind of express their own opinions of what they like about his own series. I heard someone suggest that certain molds should be used for certain characters in the BotCon set that they did, where they did animated Stunticons. And I think the person was suggesting that you use the Wreck-Gar garbage truck mold to do Motormaster. And he just got incredibly condescending. He's like, oh, well, no, you can't do that in this universe. And it's like, I understand that in a lot of ways animated is his baby, but it came across as very condescending on his part. And again, for someone like me who's not a fan of the show to begin with, that's not going to help me gain any sort of appreciation for it. My major problems with the show in general, well, we talked about, okay, I'm going to explain to you what I think would have made the show better from a storyline perspective, and hopefully that'll give people an insight as to what my problems were. We talked about previously in the Bumblebee segment that there are fans who want a series where Optimus Prime and Megatron, or at least Optimus Prime, aren't main characters. And I contend that Animated had some of the pieces present to do that and to do it well. Here's my idea for fixing Animated. You essentially keep the show from a storyline perspective unchanged, but you just rotate some characters. You replace the Optimus Prime character with Hot Rod. You replace the rarely seen Ultra Magnus Supreme Commander character with Optimus Prime. This has two things. You allow Hot Rod to because in my opinion, animated Optimus Prime is basically G1 Hot Rod. He's a young character. He's a young character with leadership potential who has to prove himself. So that's what I do. Then, by making the Autobot Supreme Commander Optimus Prime, you maintain that tradition and you don't take a crap over the legacy of Transformers by demoting Prime. You keep Prime as the leader of the Autobots, but he's rarely seen. He only shows up to make big announcements. And so, as fans of the show, we're watching it and we're seeing an Autobot army with Optimus Prime still at the head, but it's focused on Hot Rod's team. And if it's focused on Hot Rod's team, it gives us a leader of the main cast who's not Optimus Prime. It allows some variety into the Transformers universe, but it doesn't cross that line into betrayal, if you get what I'm saying.
Right. And, the thing is, kind of what we're saying here about Animated isn't at all dissimilar to the criticism that's been leveled at Michael Bay over the Transformers movies. Mm-hmm. And, in Mike and I's case, we happen to agree more with the way Bay has done things, given the medium that he's got to work with, than we do with that of Animated. But, we don't mind fucking with the dynamic. Mm-hmm. We don't mind fucking with the formula. We mind fucking with the characters.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, you've got some characters that are so entrenched in the mythos of TF that, it's, I'm not going to say it's impossible to change them permanently and make it good, but is it really something you want to do? I mean, from a writing standpoint, if someone came to me and said, Jack, I want you to write, let's scale it down to something that I would actually be able to do. I want you to write a TF fanfic. Okay, well, what characters do you want me to put in it? And they give me this list of characters, and I run down it. I'm like, well, you've got some pretty heavyweights here. I really don't, for what you're wanting done with these characters, I think we should swap some of these out. And that's what it comes down to. It comes down to some characters, from a writing standpoint, I know that I personally would not want to mess with. I would want to, from a writing standpoint, substitute in, a character that I thought would better fit what that person wanted,
exactly,
the direction they were wanting to go with it. Exactly,
and that's what IDW has done, because on IDW's More Than Meets the Eye comic series, fantastic series, by the way, on IDW's More Than Meets the Eye series, they wanted to create all these characters, but they didn't do it to established characters who had established character traits, established personalities. They said, who's a blank slate? And they went through the Transformers roster and they said, well, these characters have always been around, but they've never really done much. They don't have much personality. And they used that as an opportunity to give those characters personality, to reinvent those characters, because they were never really invented in the first place. And they were able to tell the story they wanted to do, and they were able to tell it with the characters they wanted to tell it with, without messing with established characters, established personalities. And that is what animated failed to do.
Exactly. And now I know that Hasbro dictates a lot of that shit. I know that's not the decision of necessarily the creative teams. I get that, and that's fine. But it's something that should be addressed, because simply put, you're wanting things done with characters that are, 20 years old at the time, and, a little bit more than that, but 25, whatever. They're old characters. They're very established, entrenched characters. And you go and you just completely rewrite even their personalities, their roles, and how they behave, with little calling to what people recognize. And, you're going to run into some problems. And I can see that it would be very difficult to write. It would be extremely difficult to write and do it well. And, in that respect, I think they did it as best they could. But doing that with those characters, you don't touch them there.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to look at the characters of Chrome Dome Rewind and IDW.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, I know fans, Transformers fans, and, I'm guilty of this too, so I'm not trying to be disparaging to anyone, but we tend to take one line that they might have had, one of the few lines they might have had in G1, or back-of-the-box text spec readout, and try to build a character from that. But let's be honest for a moment. Before More Than Meets the Eye, that comic series, Chrome Dome and Rewind didn't have characters. I mean, you couldn't. The best you could tell me about Rewind before More Than Meets the Eye is he likes trivia. Okay, that's not a character. I'm sorry, but they said, we have an idea for two characters. Well, Rewind and Chrome Dome don't really have much of an established character. Let's use them, and they were able to invent them using these new characters, and it wasn't a problem because it didn't really come into conflict with a previously established characterization. It would have been the animated approach would have been to stick Optimus Prime and Prowl into those roles and disregard everything that had come before. And that's the difference.
And at least a dozen fanfic writers out there just simultaneously went, aha!
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah. But, that's how you do it. And, I understand that Hasbro, they want to sell Optimus Prime toys. So, you could say, oh, well, they had to put Optimus Prime in that situation because Optimus Prime had to be a main character, to which I say no. Because, Ultra Magnus, who wasn't a main character, and again, I'd put Optimus Prime in the Ultra Magnus role. Animated Ultra Magnus, he got a toy, and he wasn't a main character. So you could have put Optimus Prime as sort of this distant Autobot leader that only shows up a couple times in the show. That doesn't mean Hasbro can't sell Optimus Prime toys. And Optimus Prime, I'd say... repaint. Well, Animated Ultra Magnus wasn't a repaint of Optimus Prime, but they created a whole new mold for Animated Ultra Magnus, even though he didn't have very many appearances. So if that's Optimus Prime, and Optimus Prime only shows up a few times in the show, you can still sell Optimus Prime toys. Optimus Prime is a big enough name that all you have to do is put his toy in a Transformers box, and it kind of sells itself. You don't need he doesn't need to be the main character on a TV show, is what I'm saying. So, and so Animated had that opportunity to do that, to that show that doesn't star Optimus Prime and do it right. They had that opportunity and it was lost, and now we're stuck in a show where Bumblebee is the leader because Animated couldn't get its crap together the first go-around. Thanks a lot, Marty Eisenberg. Marty Eisenberg, by the way, is also the guy who wanted to have Starscream whisper all of his lines because he thought it would be funny if the guy with the name Scream in his name was really quiet.
What is he, 5?
He was, he was convinced otherwise when, the voice actor who played Starscream did a really good Chris Latta impression from G1, so that convinced him to just do it not stupid. But, yeah, Marty Eisenberg originally wanted Starscream to whisper all of his lines because he thought it would be funny or clever. But I know there is a vocal Animated fandom, and again, I don't think Jack and I are going to hate you if you like Animated. We all like different things, but, you know, the Animated crowd is pretty loud, and we decided, you know, we have a show, we're going to use it as a platform to kind of promote an opposite view, an opposing view, so that it doesn't become just a sea of clamoring for Animated. And I don't think, and if these numbers are any indication, the Animated fandom just might be a minority because, you know, if I'm looking at things correctly, Mech Ideas, a third-party company, came out with a line called Techno-Toon Titans where they were going to make animated-style toys for every animated character who didn't get a toy. They were put up on BBTS for a pre-order. And of course, BBTS uses pre-orders to judge the viability of a third-party product, and they canceled it because not enough people signed up for the pre-order.
Did you sign up for the pre-order to show your support for the product, Mike?
I don't like Animated, so I didn't. Because, you know, that's how capitalism works.
You know, I love that word. It makes my nipples hard. Capitalism is wonderful because in this particular instance, what you have is, you know, the consumers, the you know, end consumer voting with their wallets. No, we don't want this. And it could have been that it was Animated. Or it simply could have been that they didn't like what they seen from the prototypes. I mean, you know, from when I looked at them, they did kind of look like piles of shit.
Well, you know, it's an Animated toy. Of course it does.
Right, but I've actually seen a couple of Animated toys that I didn't find to be visually repugnant, in toy form at least, you know. But, you know, for whatever reason, you know, the fandom collectively said, no, this is not something that we're wanting to pay for. And I like that. You know, capitalism, fucking A, rocks.
And hey, you know, I know a lot of people are going to trumpet the fact that a graph that Hasbro showed proved that Transformers Animated was the highest selling non-movie line since the launch of the movie. And I realize that, but I'd also say, look at the timing. That was Animated launched between the first and second live action movies. Transformers, to put it bluntly, was a hot topic at the time. I contend that Animated simply got those numbers because that happened to be the current line in between those two movies. Had any line been put, Transformers Prime, for example, probably would have done similar numbers to animated if it had all the hype from the first live-action movie behind it.
Right. Yeah, it got a huge movie bump. And, the animated toys and their design, both, from an engineering standpoint and from, we said that again, from an engineering standpoint and from a design standpoint, they'd be a great thing to get a kid who, or even an adult who didn't want to spend an hour transforming one of the movie toys, who wanted the Transformers name on something. Hey, look, little Billy, you got you a Transformer. Yeah, I love Transformers. One of those kind of a deals. And it got a movie bump, is what happened.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. So I figure we'd shift gears from aggravation from the Transformers variety to aggravation of the World of Warcraft variety.
Dumpster fire.
Cause, oh my god. Okay, some background. Listeners might remember on one of our earlier shows we talked about that as part of the launch of the new World of Warcraft expansion, Warlords of Draenor, they would be implementing a level 90 boost free with the purchase of Warlords of Draenor.
Yeah.
Well, they have they've done two things. They've put Warlords of Draenor on pre-order, so I believe if you pre-order it, you do get your level 90 boost.
Immediately, yes.
And they've put level 90 boosts for sale, $60 on their own. So,
now,
yes.
Now, when we discussed this a couple weeks ago, we went on record as saying, we don't see the harm in it. Literally, our standpoint was what could possibly go wrong, because of the simple fact we felt that most of the players who would be taking advantage of this would be using them as alts, and they would have a general idea how to play the game, and that there would be such a small percentage of players who were inexperienced with the game in general that would take advantage of this, that though it might pose some mild inconvenience, that it wouldn't cause anything really all that noticeable.
Indeed.
Now, never let it be said that we here at Bags cannot admit when we are wrong. Yeah. Take it, Mike.
Okay, so I recently bought a 2-month subscription card. I re-upped my WoW subscription. And I decided I was going to run a raid. Now
How'd that work out for you?
There are multiple ways to run a raid in World of Warcraft. You can gather friends together, and you can put a raid group together and run it that way. You can do flex raiding, where you get a core group and then fill out the rest of the spots with recruited players, or you can do something called Looking for Raid. And Looking for Raid has its conveniences, and of course, coming back to the game for the first time in months, I decided I'd do Looking for Raid. It's an easy way to get back into the swing of raiding. So I do the Gates of Orgrimmar, the second part of the Siege of Orgrimmar raid. Oh my god. Nobody knows what they're doing. Because you have people who, the day before, were level 15 killing bears in one of the starting zones, and they've suddenly been bumped up to level 90 overnight by paying $60 or for a level 90 boost. And as a result, they don't know how to play. Tanks don't know how to tank, and you have DPS, damage dealers, who are pulling enemies without tanks because they don't know what a tank is. They haven't played the game yet to realize how you're supposed to do it.
I don't see any tanks here.
So, yeah.
All I see are people standing around. Where's the tanks?
So, you have face pulling, which is when people just go off and start pulling enemies without tanks. You have tanks who don't really know how to control a raid group. You have people who don't understand that you actually need to work out some sort of strategy to win certain fights. For those of us who try to impart such strategy, like, someone will say, hey, we need 5 people to go over to this tower for this fight. And then everybody runs to that tower because they just see that people are supposed to go there. It's absolutely just, it's just insane. It's terrible. It's frustrating to play. Until Draenor launches and they raise the level cap, looking for raid is essentially broken.
Yeah, and, you know, this is something that I didn't think would happen. In retrospect, it seems painfully obvious. Of course, that could be, you know, hindsight bias. But, you know, in retrospect, it seems like, you know, we should have seen it. We should have called it a mile away, especially me, who tends to be a bit more cynical, and a bit, you know, usually quicker to criticize something than Mike is. But, damn. And this is not an isolated experience that Mike's talked about. I've seen reports from several different people, you know, who have gone in to looking for raid and have pretty much all made the same assessment, and that's that LFR right now is pretty much a dumpster fire. It's just this huge clusterfuck of shit-dickery and incompetence. Mm-hmm. You've got people who are pulling mobs because they've got 2 tanks, and they've got 4 other people standing there in a 25-man raid, but they've got 6 people, but they've got 2 tanks. So yeah, let's go ahead and pull.
And you have people, and you have people who have been doing low-level stuff, which you can easily do on your own, even at a low level, and they've just been bumped up to level 90, and so they don't understand that, you know, you can't just solo everything. So they get into the raid, and they start pulling high-level, elite-powered enemies, and then they get gunned down, and because everything's aggroed, that means that when you die and you try to re-enter the raid, you're killed, you're cut down as soon as you revive yourself. So it's just this constant cycle of incompetence. I mean, again, in theory, I don't have a problem with these level 90 boosts because I think it does address a very real concern and need within the World of Warcraft community. But this is just one of those unintended consequences that is...
Or is it?
Oh, you don't think it is?
Well, okay. I'm not going to say that I don't think it is. I'm going to say that there's another possibility.
Before you begin that, I just want to quickly make this part of a new segment that we're going to try out from time to time. Coast to Coast with Bags.
There's so many people who aren't going to fucking get that reference, dude. There's so many people who just aren't. Alright, so let me give the background that you just, the exposition that you so eloquently did not do. Alright, so, I have this side kind of hobby in my mind during my time, besides thoughts of things that most guys think about. And one of these happens to be conspiracy theories. And I tend to apply this to almost anything that I'm engaged in. Yes, even World of Warcraft. It's not that I believe any of them, or all of them. I do believe some of them. But certainly not all of them, because you can only open your mind so much before your fucking brain falls out. But in this case, you know, when Mike and I were discussing this last night, I got to thinking about it. Didn't see this coming. But why didn't Blizzard? And I think that's what a lot of people are going to want to ask about this. Well, Blizzard, dude, why didn't you see this coming? Mm-hmm. And maybe they did. Maybe they did, and it's their way of marginalizing and phasing out, or at the very least deterring people from running an LFR. Maybe this is their way of saying this is the type of people that should be an LFR. And the reason why I'm saying this is because, you know, BlizzCon, and since then, they have referred to LFR raid as tourist mode. It's a place you go when you just want to see the content. Nothing else. It's not meant for people who know what they're doing. It's not meant for people who want gear upgrades. It meant solely for people who want to see the content and nothing more. It's meant to be almost an amusement park ride for those people.
And it's become, it's been damaging to the in-game guild system. It makes it harder for guilds to recruit. Blizzard has all but said that LFR is something they kind of regret making.
Yeah, it's removed incentive because, okay, when Mike and I began playing the game, in 2008 for me, 2009 for him, you know, you leveled to level cap, which at the time was 80, and, you know, you ran your dungeons, you learned the mechanics of working with the group if you hadn't already over the course of leveling, and then you went on to raiding, and raiding is essentially just a really big dungeon with more people and harder bosses. I mean, of course, there's more differences than just that, but for all practical points and purposes, that's what you're looking at. Mm-hmm. And you got that introduction through your guild, and you would see, you know, your guild leader and the core leaders, and they would have all this fucking kick-ass gear. And you know what? It motivated you. It made you want to be better. And, you know, you would spend nights, as like guilds still do, honestly, you know, but you would spend nights, weeks trying to fucking, you know, get down this boss. And when you finally did, like, oh my God, we did it. And, you know, slowly over time, you became competent. It wasn't something that happened overnight. It was something you had to work at, you know, and it was something you worked at in game. You would go on the sites, elitist jerks or what the hell ever. You would read the builds, you'd read the mentality behind the techniques, and you'd watch the videos on Tank Spot was a big one at the time. I'm not sure if they're still, I'm sure they're still around. You know, you would watch all this shit. You'd try to learn the tactics, learn how to gear your character, what to do. And, you know, eventually it would pay off if you had enough people in the guild who were capable of doing these things. And these aren't hard things really to do. It just takes the will to do it. I mean, it just, you know, if you have basic literacy skills, you can get to that point if you just work at it. But now, though, you've got LFR, and it doesn't take that level of them anymore.
Not really.
Right, and this isn't me being an elitist. You know, I get it. You know, people want to see what they pay for, but how many video games have you bought where you didn't see what you paid for? I bought Contra for $50 when I was a kid, and I didn't beat it until, like, I was way older. And I had a lot of NES games like that I never hard. So, you know, there's an entitlement mentality that kind of gave birth to LFR, I think. And the fact that it rewarded actually useful gear was a problem. And Blizzard has said, you know, that they're looking at ways of alleviate that. And they introduced flex rating, which is meant now to be flex rating is meant to be what LFR has been used for, which is kind of that way for new raiders to get accustomed to things, or that casual raider in some way just doesn't have a lot of time. People who have some mentality to progress in the game. That's what flex rating is meant for. And they said that they want more people to go into flex as opposed to LFR. What better way to do that than to turn LFR into a complete clusterfuck of sorrow to where no one wants to go near it. I'm not saying that's what Blizzard has done. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that at all, but I'm saying, you know what?
Possible.
If that would, yeah, it's something. It's a bit of social engineering, and Blizzard has shown on more than one occasion that they do this. You know, they freely admit to it, and it's not really a bad thing. They're the developers of the game. They try to control how the players do things to maximize the enjoyment of the experience, so to speak, as it were. And, you know, that's why you have the lack of auction houses in Pandaria and in Dillard, because they want people to occasionally go to a main city so that a capital city feels like a capital city, and you see people running around.
Until they did it so much in Cataclysm that people didn't go anywhere but the capital cities.
Right, yeah. And a lot of times it backfires. So this could be a social engineering, there's that word again, engineering, wow. You know, this could be a social engineering experiment gone horribly awry, and, you know, I'm not saying that it is, I'm saying that it could be.
Mm-hmm. Another, while we're on this topic of conspiracy theories, while we're in the segment Coast to Coast of Bags, let's talk about realms. Realms within the World of Warcraft. Now, a realm is essentially, it's a server, is what it is. The game is so big, there are so many players that everyone can't be playing on the same server or else the thing would crash. So there are different servers, different copies of the game, and when you sign up for the game, you pick a server and you go there. Now we talked about this, that WoW's subscription numbers have dropped from the height of around 12 million to hovering around 7.5 million now. As a result, some realms have become incredibly depopulated. Now, you would think that they would just close down those realms and give those players free realm transfers. Usually you have to pay to transfer a realm. So, but they haven't. Instead, what they're doing, they're initiating this new system called realm merging, which they take two or three realms that have medium to low population, and they just connect them. They say, okay, so now everybody on these three realms will now inhabit the same world. Mm-hmm. And, it's been a process that it has been slow. They've been doing it a couple realms at a time. But I always kind of wondered, well, why not just give players free realm transfers and then close down the depopulated realms? And, Jack, I think you have another coast-to-coast theory on why that is.
Yeah. I never did actually explain what Coast to Coast was, did I? It's basically a show. It's a AM radio show. It's usually on really late at night, depending on what time zone you're in. If you're interested in UFOs or anything kind of weird paranormal type shit.
Government conspiracies.
Yeah, government conspiracies, just weird shit in general. Look up, actually. It's a fun show. Just Google it, Coast to Coast AM, and you'll find it. But anyways, back to what I was saying. Yeah. All right. So we were going over last night, the reasons behind these realm merging. And granted, this theory is just something I pulled out of my ass while I was drunk. This is even more of a case of something I don't actually believe, but it was one of those things where it's kind of like, well, what if? And Mike's like, I don't get why they don't just shut down the fucking servers. And I said, well, there's a couple reasons that could be. One, maybe Blizzard has such a substantial cash investment in this infrastructure for handling this traffic that it's actually, fiscally more responsible for them to keep it going than to shut it down. Mm-hmm. Also, they could be anticipating, upswings in subscription levels, and they want to have that extra capacity there for that purpose. Mm-hmm. Though, what if there's another possibility? What if they're afraid that if they say that they're shutting down servers, people are going to say, oh, well, the game's dying. And that would, of course, cause doubt in the future of World of Warcraft. Blizzard is a publicly traded company. They do have a legal obligation to their shareholders to, maintain a profitable corporation. Mm-hmm. And so just outright shutting down the servers may not have been a feasible alternative for that reason on its own, possibly.
But what if they did?
Right. What if they found a way to have their cake and eat it too? And, I realize that in doing so, I'm kind of insinuating that Blizzard may have done something illegal or shady. And this is me kind of having fun with the idea. I'm not insinuating that Blizzard has done anything of the sort, for the record. My mind just kind of ran with the idea. And it's like, well, we've got these servers that we've got to shut down, but we don't want it put out there publicly that we're doing it. How do we do so? Realm transfers, quote unquote. Because if you notice, it takes, they announce these things a couple of months in advance, right? So they'll say, for example, our realm that Mike and I play on, Cosmodon, it got merged with Azul Narub, I believe, is what we were merged with.
Yes.
And they announced that, a couple of months ago, mm-hmm. and I just kept forgetting to tell you. Sorry. But yeah, so.
I figured it out eventually.
And there's the fun for me, oh my god, the realm's been merged. Oh yeah, about that. But,
what if these mergers aren't happening, though?
Right, what if they're not happening? What if they're shutting down a server and simply making, and just transferring the tunes over the course of the maintenance cycle, mm-hmm. when these mergers are supposed to be taking place? And no one's really the wiser. Mm-hmm. I mean, it says you log into Cosmodon.
But what if it
says you log into Azul Narub? You could be logging into fucking Tostitos. And it would be the same server. It says whatever they want it to say when you log into it.
So maybe they merged the servers, but so maybe they transferred everyone to one server, but they're keeping the old server labels around to make us think.
Yeah.
That we're
or
on the
simply, or simply even a redirect through proxy or something along those lines. It routes you through the same login procedures that you would have if you're on, Cosmodon or Azure Rub or whatever. But you end up on either Cosmodon or Azure Rub, whichever one did not get shut down. You think they're merged, but they're really not, because these merged servers, they share an economy.
Yeah.
The auction houses are merged. The chats are merged, I believe. Pretty much everything about them is merged. And, I'm sure there may be a few technical details that could for sure shoot a hole in this little batshit insane theory of mine. But again, it's just an idea that I came up with. Well, perception is reality. It just creates that you're logging to a different server, you're going to think you are, unless you have the equipment and the technical knowledge to prove otherwise. So, who's to say,
Indeed.
All the stockholders in private just kept their mouths shut. But then again, though, they do the public earnings statements, so it would have to have been something pretty shady, which, again, I'm not insinuating. This is just an idea.
It's just an idea, and you can't kill an idea.
Indeed, you can kill a man, but you can't kill an idea.
So we're going to leave the realm of conspiracy theories for just a bit. We might return to it some other day. But right now, there's an issue with a video game company, not Blizzard, Konami, I believe, that you wanted to address.
Yeah, Konami. One of the oldest names in gaming. I mean, all the way back from the NES days. These are the guys that brought you Contra, Castlevania, Gradius, Life Force, and Metal Gear. And all of these games, most of these games, in some way or another, have made some kind of a transition into the modern gaming world with varying degrees of success. None of them have been as successful as Metal Gear, though. When Metal Gear Solid came out, it was a complete reinvention of, what had been an 8-bit supposed stealth game, and it's regarded as a classic. Whether the game itself is actually any good or not is subjective. But, Metal Gear Solid over the last several years has garnered a huge following. And I'm going to be upfront, and I'm going to be, I'm just going to say right now, I have not played a Metal Gear Solid game. Okay. The reason why I'm even bringing this up is because I think it's something that we as gamers and as consumers need to be aware of.
Okay.
And I think we all, all of us in the media, the gaming media, even if it's just as small of a show, small of a presence as Mike and I have, we need to let people know about this. So, a few months ago, Konami announced that there was going to be Metal Gear Solid 5, and, all across the world, thousands of boners went up simultaneously. There has not been a real Metal Gear Solid game in a while, and the latest installment in the franchise was Metal Gear Revengeance. That is a word now.
Metal Gear Revengeance, to be followed up with Metal Gear, The Redeadening.
Fucking totally. Which starred, from the best of my assumption, the best that I can glean from the images I've seen, that game starred an androgynous cyborg. Cannot identify gender whatsoever. So, anyways, yeah. So, they announced Metal Gear Solid 5, and everyone's all fucking stoked, right? And then they say, well, we're going to be releasing a prologue to this game that will be purchasable shortly. Everyone's like, yeah, this is going to fucking rock! And then Konami's like, yep, it's going to rock. It's going to cost you money. We don't care, take our money! It's going to cost you $40. We don't care, take our money! It's going to be short. Take our money? It's going to be about 2 hours. Wait, what? So, the game comes out. The quote-unquote game. The demo. The demo that you pay money for.
How much money?
Well, initially the price tag was $40. Konami kind of backtracked a little bit and lowered it to $30. You now only pay $30 for a game demo that is worth about probably $10 at the most.
Mm-hmm.
Their estimate of the lengthiness of this game is a bit off. There are people who have not even played the game who are finishing it or who have not even played a Metal Gear Solid game before, who have finished it in under 2 hours.
Isn't there a speed run of 6 minutes?
There is the speed run record currently is 6 minutes. Now, here's why, even if you've never played this game and don't really ever even plan to, here's why you should care. And this is why I care. Because this sets a dangerous precedent.
Mm-hmm.
You know, think of your favorite game franchise, whether it's John Madden or Final Fantasy or, whatever. Halo, what the fuck ever. Now imagine if the publisher, developer, whatever of these games put out basically a demo of this game and expected you to pay money for it.
Mm-hmm.
And you get, maybe a couple of hours of gameplay depending on your skill level.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a very dangerous road that we're heading down. When game companies feel that they have the right to break up a game in installments like this, to sell a segment of a game at almost full price.
Mm-hmm.
It's basically half price, and it's one level of the game. It's one level of the game, and they're charging $30, which is half the cost, that the real game will have when it comes out, which will probably be around $60.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a dark road that we're heading down when companies feel that this is something that can be done. And as long as we continue to allow it, it will be done. This will embolden other companies, other developers to engage in these practices if we allow it by purchasing it.
EA is probably salivating at this.
Yeah, and they're a company that's well known for asshattery.
I mean, what we essentially see here is a trend that could end with selling games by, piecemeal. Why charge $60 to $80 for a single game when you can release a level of it for $40, another couple of levels for maybe $50? It sets a very bad precedent whereby they can stretch the release of a game out over multiple installments, charging you way more money than the actual content you're getting. It's a disgusting practice, and honestly, Konami should be ashamed of themselves. In my opinion.
Well, honestly, Konami should, but why are they doing it? Because they know they can get away with it. Who's letting them get away with it? We are.
Mm-hmm.
We, the gamers, the consumers, are letting this happen. We have ourselves to blame because they wouldn't do it if they thought that they couldn't get away with it.
Mm-hmm.
They know the value of this franchise. Mm-hmm. And it is merited. I mean, I'm not dissing the Metal Gear Solid series at all. From everything that I've heard, it's a very solid series, no pun intended.
Solid.
It's a good series and a good franchise, and I'm not here to diss it. But, we've got to keep things in check. We've got to assign an actual legitimate worth to these things. We've got to draw a line. I love this thing. I love this game that you're putting out. But what you're asking me to do in order to obtain it, no, I'm sorry. No, we're not going to do this.
And again, it comes back to, capitalism. Capitalism is a very easy system to work within. If you don't like what Konami's doing, then you don't give them your money. And if enough of you don't give them your money, then they will decide to stop doing it.
Yeah. And, originally our show was not going to include this segment, but when I told Mike about what was happening, we jointly felt that it was important enough to tack on to the show, even if it meant we went a little bit long. Because this is kind of a time-sensitive thing. This game this demo, it has only been released recently, and there may be some people out there who are planning to buy it who haven't bought it yet. And everyone, I think I don't dare call Mike and I journalists. We're just two guys who like games and movies and shit like that, and we want to talk about it. But we do have people who listen to the show, and we feel that it's our obligation to provide a certain heads up to our listeners. Be like, hey, this is some shit that's going on that we need to be looking out for.
The tens of listeners we have per week.
All right, you 3 dozen magnificent bastards, listen up. So yeah, there it is. Let's at least for Bags' contingent in the webverse there, let's make our voices heard and tell Konami to go suck a dick and not buy this fucking demo.
Indeed. And I think that'll do it this week. Kind of a depressing week, honestly. Optimus Prime gets kicked off of his own franchise in favor of Bumblebee. We had to talk about a Transformers series we didn't like all that much. Well, we didn't have to, but, we're masochists. We
were in the neighborhood and in the mood, so we dropped by and said, hey.
World of Warcraft, facing some unintended problems and Konami trying to bend the gaming community over and have their way with them. Hopefully we'll have some more uplifting stuff to talk to you guys about next week, but until then, for Jack, I am Mike, signing off.
Night, everybody.